Love had never been gentle between them. For Elena Carter, love came like a wildfire, sudden, consuming, impossible to contain. And for Adrian Blackwell, love had always been possession, fierce, protective, something he claimed and kept. The first time she saw him, it was in the grand marble lobby of Blackwell Enterprises. She had been a junior architect, nervously balancing rolled-up blueprints in her arms, when the elevator doors opened and he stepped out. Tall, commanding, every line of his tailored suit cut to perfection, his steel-gray eyes cold and calculating until they landed on her. Something shifted. For a moment his expression softened, curiosity flickering as if she were more than just another employee lost in his empire. "You're blocking my way," he said, his voice smooth, deep, a warning wrapped in velvet. Elena's cheeks flushed. "Sorry, Mr. Blackwell." But instead of walking past, he studied her blueprints. "Those yours?" "Yes," she stammered. "Concept sketches for the Midtown project." He raised an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware interns presented proposals." Her chin lifted despite her pounding heart. "I wasn't aware billionaires stopped to notice." For the first time, Adrian Blackwell smiled. It didn't take long for him to pursue her. Adrian was relentless when he wanted something, and from the moment he met Elena, he wanted her. Dinners in candlelit restaurants, drives down the coast in his black Aston Martin, nights filled with conversations that ran deeper than she expected from a man like him. He listened when she spoke about design, about creating spaces that made people feel safe. He told her about the weight of power, the loneliness of living at the top, and when he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was fire, consuming and claiming. "You're mine, Elena," he whispered against her lips one night, his hands threading through her hair. "I don't share. I don't let go." It should have frightened her. Instead, it thrilled her, because she was his, in a way she couldn't explain, and he was hers, even if he didn't yet realize it. Their marriage was inevitable. The proposal came in the most Adrian way possible, not with flowers or fireworks, but with quiet certainty. They had been standing on the balcony of his penthouse, the city glittering beneath them, when he slipped a velvet box from his pocket. "Elena?" he said simply, opening it to reveal a diamond that caught the city lights. "Marry me." Her heart stuttered. There were no flowery speeches, no promises of fairy tales, just Adrian's gray eyes, steady and unyielding, as if he were stating a fact. She belonged to him. "Yes," she whispered, breathless. "Yes, I'll marry you," his lips curved faintly. He slid the ring onto her finger and kissed her so deeply it stole every doubt she might have had. Married life was a whirlwind. Adrian treated her like both queen and possession. He showered her with luxuries, silk gowns, private getaways, a home that felt like a palace. But he also wrapped her in his shadow, his protection sometimes suffocating. "Don't drive alone at night," he would say. "Don't trust anyone with your ideas until I've vetted them. You're mine, Elena. Don't ever forget that." Some might have called it controlling, but Elena saw the cracks beneath, the fear of losing what he loved. At night, when he held her tightly in his arms, when his kisses grew softer, when his voice broke as he whispered her name, she knew the truth. Adrian Blackwell wasn't just a man of power. He was a man terrified of weakness, of love, of how much she could undo him, and she loved him for it. But perfection never lasts. Even in the golden haze of their early years, shadows lurked at the edges. Rivals circled Adrian's empire like vultures. Society whispered about the girl who had captured the untouchable Blackwell, and in the shadows, jealousy festered. Elena didn't know it yet. She didn't know that whispers, once planted, could grow into poison. That the man who held her so tightly would one day let her go. That possession could turn into release. But that night, as Adrian kissed her on their balcony under a canopy of stars, she believed nothing could ever tear them apart. The cracks began as whispers. At first, Elena ignored them. She had always known that being married to Adrian Blackwell meant living under a magnifying glass. Every socialite wanted to dissect her. Every rival wanted to undermine her. Every headline wanted to twist her story. But some whispers were harder to ignore than others. You know he's too powerful to be loyal. She's nothing more than a pretty distraction. She doesn't belong in his world. Elena brushed them off with a smile. But sometimes, late at night, when Adrian came home later than usual, she couldn't stop the sting of doubt. He would enter their penthouse, his suit immaculate, his tie loosened, exhaustion lining his face. "You're still awake," he'd murmur, kissing her forehead. "Always," she'd whisper back, searching his eyes for answers he never gave, but he never explained where he'd been. And slowly, a wall began to rise between them. The whispers didn't come from strangers alone. Vanessa, Adrian's former lover, beautiful and venomous, reappeared like a ghost that refused to stay buried. Elena saw her at gala after gala, always smiling too sweetly, always leaning too close to Adrian. One evening, at a charity ball, Vanessa cornered Elena by the champagne fountain. "You must be exhausted," she purred, her crimson lips curving in a mock smile. "Keeping up with Adrian isn't easy. He needs someone who understands his world, someone who knows his weaknesses." Elena stiffened. "And you think that's you?" Vanessa's laugh was low, cruel. "I know it's not you." Elena's chest tightened, but she forced herself to walk away, head held high. Still, Vanessa's words lingered like poison in her veins. Adrian noticed the change. "You've been quiet lately," he said one night as they lay in bed, his arm draped across her waist. "I'm fine," she whispered, though she wasn't. He shifted, his eyes narrowing. "Don't lie to me, Elena. If something's wrong, say it." Her heart thudded painfully. She wanted to scream the truth, that Vanessa was poisoning her mind, that society's whispers were eating at her. But instead, she whispered, "I just don't want to lose you." His gaze softened, his hand tightening around hers. "You won't. You're mine. Always." For a moment, the words soothed her. But possession wasn't the same as trust. And in Adrian's eyes, she sometimes saw shadows she couldn't name. The poison spread further. A mysterious email arrived one afternoon while Adrian was at work. The subject line read, "Do you really know him?" Inside were blurry photos. Adrian in a hotel lobby with a woman who looked vaguely familiar. The angle was grainy, the timestamp suspicious, but the implication was clear. Her stomach knotted. She wanted to delete it, to pretend she'd never seen it. But the image burned into her mind. That night, when Adrian came home, she couldn't stop staring at him. "Something wrong?" he asked, loosening his tie. "No," she lied, her voice brittle. He kissed her cheek and disappeared into his office, unaware of the storm brewing in her chest. The next day, another whisper came, not by email, but in person. Julian Ward, one of Adrian's fiercest business rivals, approached Elena at a luncheon. His smile was charming, but his eyes were sharp. "Mrs. Blackwell," he drawled, sipping his wine. "It must be challenging being married to Adrian. He has quite the reputation." Elena stiffened. "And what reputation is that?" Julian leaned closer, his voice dropping. "That he doesn't always value what he has. That he's easily distracted." Her hands trembled under the table. Julian smirked, satisfied with the crack he had planted, and walked away. That night, Elena confronted Adrian, though not directly. She stood by the balcony, the city glowing beneath them, and whispered, "If you ever doubted me, if someone told you lies about me, would you believe them?" Adrian frowned, stepping closer. "Why would you ask that?" "Just answer," she pressed, her voice trembling. His jaw tightened. "I'd know the truth. I'd know you," but his eyes wavered, just for a second. And that second was enough to terrify her. What Elena didn't know was that the whispers weren't just reaching her. They were reaching Adrian, too. Late at night, as he reviewed contracts and fielded calls, his phone would buzz with anonymous messages. Photos of Elena leaving meetings with male colleagues, notes suggesting she was being courted by rivals, She's too good at pretending. She's not as innocent as she seems. Do you know where she really is when you're at work? At first, Adrian ignored them. He trusted her. She was his. But the more the whispers grew, the harder it became to silence the doubt, because Adrian Blackwell had always believed possession meant control. And for the first time, he felt it slipping. Elena still believed their love was strong enough to survive anything. She clung to that belief as tightly as she clung to Adrian's hand in public, as tightly as she kissed him in private. But love is fragile when poisoned by lies, and soon, possession would turn to release. The night it happened was supposed to be a celebration. Elena had been chosen to present her firm's newest design, a cultural hub for local artists. It was her dream project, the kind she had worked her whole life for. Adrian had promised he would be there, sitting in the front row, his proud eyes steady on hers. But as she stepped onto the stage and scanned the glittering crowd, his seat was empty. She smiled through her speech, but her chest ached. Each word was for him, each design inspired by the love they had once shared. Yet when the applause echoed, the hollow chair beside the mayor told her the truth. Adrian wasn't coming. Hours later, she returned home, heels clicking softly against the marble floor of their penthouse. The silence felt heavier than usual. She set down her bag, her throat tight. "Adrian?" she called softly. A door creaked open. His office. She stepped inside and froze. Adrian stood behind his desk, his gray eyes cold, a folder spread open before him. Photos spilled across the surface. Grainy shots of her with Julian Ward, taken outside restaurants, hotel lobbies, even once outside her own office. Her stomach dropped. "What is this?" she whispered. His gaze was sharp, unyielding. "You tell me." She shook her head, her pulse racing. "They're lies, setups. You know I'd never—" "Don't." His voice cracked like a whip. "Don't insult me with denials. You think I don't recognize betrayal when I see it?" Her breath caught. "Adrian, please, look at me. Do you really believe I would cheat on you?" His jaw clenched. "I believe what's in front of me." Her heart shattered. She stepped forward, desperate. "Those photos are fabricated. You know Julian wants to destroy you. This is his doing. You know me, Adrian. You know I would never betray you." For the briefest moment, something flickered in his eyes. Doubt, pain. The man who once swore she was his forever. But then his walls rose higher, his voice turning to ice. "I thought I knew you," he said bitterly. "But maybe I was just blinded." Her tears blurred her vision. No, don't say that. You once told me I was yours always. Has that changed so easily?" His hands clenched into fists. "You are mine, but I don't keep what's tainted." The words sliced through her like glass. "Adrian," her voice cracked, her body trembling. "You're making a mistake. You're letting them win. Don't let lies destroy us." But his expression was stone. "Pack your things," he said coldly. "I won't live with betrayal." She staggered back as though struck. "You're releasing me?" His lips twisted. "You were never mine if you could be swayed so easily." Her knees buckled, but she forced herself to stand. Forced herself to breathe even as her chest caved in. "I never betrayed you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And one day you'll realize what you've done." He didn't answer. He didn't even look at her as she turned and walked out, tears streaming down her face. The slam of the door echoed like the end of forever. That night, Elena packed her life into 2 suitcases. The ring on her finger felt like a shackle burning her skin. She pulled it off with shaking hands, leaving it on the nightstand beside the bed they once shared. The city outside glowed with indifference as she stepped into a cab, her body hollow, her soul shattered. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay. As the cab pulled away, she glanced up at the penthouse one last time. A silhouette stood at the window, tall, broad-shouldered, unyielding, Adrian, watching, but not stopping her. She whispered into the night, her voice raw with pain. "Goodbye, Adrian." And with that, Elena Carter vanished from his world. The city felt colder without him. Elena spent the first nights in a budget motel, its peeling wallpaper and flickering neon sign, a far cry from the penthouse she once called home. The sheets smelled of bleach, the walls were thin, and the silence was deafening. She lay awake, staring at the cracked ceiling, replaying his words over and over. "You were mine, but I don't keep what's tainted." Her chest tightened until she thought it might collapse. She had begged him to see the truth, to believe in her. But Adrian had chosen the lies instead, and so she vanished. In the weeks that followed, Elena disappeared from the glittering circles she once moved through. No more galas, no more headlines with her name beside Adrian's. Society whispered about their sudden split, rumors spiraling like wildfire. She wasn't good enough. She betrayed him. He released her. What else could he do? Elena didn't correct them. She had no strength left to fight. Instead, she poured herself into survival. Her savings weren't much. Adrian had always insisted on handling finances, leaving her with little of her own. But she refused to crawl back, refused to beg. She took freelance design jobs, working late into the night in a cramped studio apartment with a leaky faucet and paper-thin walls. Days blurred together. Coffee, sketching, chasing clients who undervalued her work. Nights were lonelier. Sometimes she'd catch herself reaching for her phone, fingers hovering over his number. But she never called. If Adrian Blackwell had believed she was guilty, then her silence would be her only dignity. And yet, survival carved her into someone new. Slowly, she learned to stand on her own. She cooked cheap meals from scratch, taught herself how to fix a broken heater, negotiated contracts with grit she never knew she had. Every rejection fueled her determination. Every doubt became a weapon she wielded. Months turned into years, and Elena Carter was no longer just the woman Adrian Blackwell had released. She was an architect with her own name, her own company, her own hard-won pride. But the scars lingered. Some nights, she still dreamed of him, of the way he used to hold her, of the promise in his eyes before suspicion turned them cold. She'd wake with tears staining her pillow, her heart aching for a love that had burned too brightly, too briefly. Other times, she saw him on magazine covers. Adrian Blackwell, Forbes Billionaire of the Year, Adrian and Vanessa Hart, a power couple. Her stomach twisted each time, but she refused to let the headlines consume her. He had chosen to believe lies. He had chosen to let her go. So she chose to rise. One winter evening, after 3 years of exile, Elena stood outside a modest building she had designed herself, a community arts center funded by small donations and her endless determination. The windows glowed with warmth, children's laughter spilling into the frosty air. She smiled, pride swelling in her chest. This was hers, built from her hands, her grit, her survival. No Adrian, no possession, just Elena, and yet, as the snow fell softly, her heart whispered truths she refused to voice. That part of her still missed him. That part of her still ached for the man he had been before the lies. That part of her wondered if he ever regretted letting her go. But she shook her head, pulling her coat tighter. The past was a wound she couldn't reopen. She was free. She had survived, and Adrian Blackwell was nothing more than a ghost. Or so she thought. 3 years after Adrian released her, Elena Carter stood taller than she ever had. The woman who once wept in a motel bed had become someone entirely different, an architect whose name was finally being recognized. Her designs, bold and full of heart, were being noticed by local publications. Her community center project had been featured in a regional magazine. Slowly, she was stepping out of the shadows. But success came with reminders. Every article, every client meeting, every networking event seemed to circle back to the same name. Adrian Blackwell. She couldn't escape him. At a cafe, a woman flipped through Forbes, Adrian's face gracing the cover with the headline, "Blackwell Enterprises Expands Global Reach." At a dinner with clients, his name slipped into conversation. Admiration, envy, sometimes disdain, but always weight. Even in her own apartment, his presence found her. Late at night, when exhaustion blurred her vision, she'd scroll through news feeds, her eyes snagging on headlines. Adrian Blackwell seen at gala with Vanessa Hart. Blackwell Enterprises dominates another quarter, the most untouchable CEO in America. Every time, her chest tightened, because no matter how much she told herself she had moved on, her heart had never fully let go. The worst moments came in her dreams. Sometimes, he was still hers. The Adrian who smiled at her over candlelight, who whispered her name against her skin, who promised she was his forever. Other times, the dreams twisted into nightmares. Adrian's eyes were cold, his voice sharp. "You were mine, but I don't keep what's tainted." She'd wake trembling, tears staining her pillow, clutching the empty side of the bed where he once slept. And every morning, she told herself the same thing. It's over. He's gone. You survived, but scars never truly fade. One evening, she attended a gala, not for society, but for her work. She had been invited to present a new eco-friendly project, a major step forward for her small firm. She wore a sleek black gown, her hair swept up, her eyes lined with quiet strength. She had learned how to mask her pain, how to walk into rooms with her chin high even when whispers chased her. But whispers always followed. Isn't that Adrian Blackwell's ex-wife? She looks good, for someone he discarded. I heard she cheated. That's why he let her go. The words sliced, but she didn't flinch. She had learned to survive them. She presented her project with confidence, her voice steady, her designs earning murmurs of approval. When the applause came, it felt like validation, her work, her name, her achievement. But even then, as she stepped down from the stage, she felt his absence like a phantom. If Adrian had been there, would his eyes have softened with pride? Would he have believed in her again? After the gala, she walked home beneath the glow of city lights. Snowflakes fell softly, the air crisp with winter. She paused at a newsstand, her breath fogging the glass as her eyes caught a glossy magazine cover. Adrian Blackwell. In a sharp suit, Vanessa at his side, her smile polished and triumphant. The headline screamed, "Power Couple of the Year." Elena's stomach twisted. Her reflection shimmered faintly over theirs in the glass. Two lives moving in opposite directions, yet forever intertwined by the past. She turned away, her heels clicking against the pavement, her heart aching despite her success. Because no matter how far she ran, Adrian's shadow followed. But fate has its own cruel timing. For just when Elena had begun to believe she could live with the scars, that she could build a life where Adrian existed only in memories and magazine covers, destiny was about to throw them back together, and the collision would reopen wounds neither of them were prepared to face. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Elena had been hunched over her drafting table, a mug of cold coffee at her side, when her inbox pinged with a message that would alter everything. Subject: Invitation to bid, Blackwell Enterprises. Headquarters expansion. Her stomach dropped. She read it once, twice. The words didn't change. Blackwell Enterprises, his company, was opening the floor for proposals. And not just any project. This was the crown jewel, the kind of commission that could catapult her small firm into global recognition. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through the details. This wasn't just another contract. It was fate twisting the knife, because to win, she would have to stand in front of Adrian Blackwell again. Her team was ecstatic. "This could change everything for us," her assistant, Maya, said, her eyes glowing with excitement. "Your designs are perfect for this kind of project. You have to do it." Elena forced a smile, her heart pounding. "Yes, we'll prepare a proposal." But inside, fear churned. She had survived years of silence, built a new identity without him. Facing Adrian meant reopening wounds she had carefully stitched shut. Still, she knew she couldn't back down. Not now. Not when everything she had fought for depended on this chance. The day of the presentation arrived too quickly. Elena stood outside the gleaming glass tower of Blackwell Enterprises, her breath shallow, her reflection staring back at her from the mirrored facade. She wore a navy suit, sharp and elegant, her auburn hair pulled into a sleek twist. "You're not the broken woman he released," she told herself. "You're stronger now. This is your moment." Squaring her shoulders, she stepped inside. The boardroom was vast, sunlight spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows. Executives sat around a polished table, murmuring as they shuffled papers, and at the head of the table, Adrian. Her breath caught. He looked older, sharper. His hair was darker, his jaw more defined, his presence even more commanding than she remembered. But his eyes, those steel-gray eyes, were the same, and when they met hers, the air between them crackled. "Elena Carter," he said at last, his voice smooth but laced with something unreadable. "It's been a long time." Her throat tightened, but she forced calm. "Mr. Blackwell." A flicker crossed his face. Annoyance at her formality, maybe, or something deeper. "Please," he gestured. "Present your proposal." Her voice was steady as she began, but inside her heart thundered. She spoke of sustainable architecture, of designing spaces that empowered people, of visions that were about more than steel and glass. As she clicked through slides, she stole glances at him. Adrian sat with his arms folded, his expression unreadable, but his gaze never left her. When she finished, the room applauded politely. "Thank you, Miss Carter," Adrian said, his tone cool, professional. "We'll be in touch." Dismissed. She gathered her papers, her fingers trembling slightly, but as she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "Elena, stay a moment." The room emptied until it was just the two of them, the silence pressed down, heavy with years of unspoken words. Adrian rose slowly, his gaze fixed on her. "You built this?" he asked, holding up one of her sketches. "Yes," she said softly. Every line, his jaw clenched. "You've done well for yourself." It should have been a compliment, but his tone was laced with something darker. Regret, pride, maybe even guilt. "I had to," she whispered. "I didn't have a choice." Their eyes locked, years of pain crashing between them. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "Why didn't you fight for us?" Her chest constricted. "Because you didn't give me a chance. You believed lies over me." He flinched just barely. "And yet here you are, standing stronger than before." Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Yes, because I had to survive when you released me." The words hung between them like a blade. For the first time, Adrian's mask cracked. His eyes softened, shadows flickering across his face. "Elena," he began, his voice raw, but she shook her head, stepping back. "Don't. You don't get to say my name like that anymore." Before he could answer, she turned and walked out, her heart pounding, her body trembling. But as the elevator doors closed, she caught one last glimpse of him, standing alone in the boardroom, his expression unreadable, his eyes burning with something she couldn't name. Fate had brought them back together, and neither of them would leave unscathed. The contract was awarded to Elena's firm. The announcement arrived 2 weeks after her presentation, and though her team erupted in cheers, Elena felt her stomach tighten. It wasn't just a professional win, it was a summons. It meant long meetings, countless site visits, endless hours in the same rooms as Adrian Blackwell. She told herself she could handle it, that she was strong enough now, untouchable. But the first project meeting shattered that illusion. They sat across from each other in a sleek conference room, blueprints spread between them. Elena pointed at the design. "If we expand this courtyard, it creates a more welcoming entry for employees. The design is about accessibility, not just grandeur." Adrian leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his gray eyes sharp. "Accessibility doesn't generate profit. Efficiency does. Cut the courtyard." Her jaw tightened. "It's not just about profit, Adrian. It's about people." His lips curved in a cold smile. "You've always been idealistic. That hasn't changed." She met his gaze, fury rising. "And you've always been arrogant. That hasn't changed either." The room fell silent, her team exchanging uneasy glances. But Adrian didn't flinch. His eyes held hers, hard and unyielding, until she finally looked back down at the blueprints. The war had begun. Their clashes became routine. At every meeting, sparks flew. He questioned her designs. She challenged his decisions. Their arguments were sharp, relentless, fueled by years of buried pain. Yet beneath the fury, there was something else, something neither of them wanted to acknowledge. Late nights blurred into early mornings as they worked side by side. One evening, she caught him watching her as she sketched, his gaze softer than it should have been. "What?" she snapped, flustered. "Nothing," he muttered, turning away, but his voice was low, raw. Another time, during a heated argument over materials, their hands brushed as they reached for the same blueprint. The touch was electric, freezing them both. For a heartbeat, silence stretched. Then Elena yanked her hand back, her face flushed. Adrian's jaw clenched. But his eyes burned with something more than anger. The tension followed them outside the office. One night, after a long meeting, Elena stepped onto the balcony for air. The city sprawled beneath her, glittering in the dark. She wrapped her arms around herself, the winter wind biting. Behind her, the glass door slid open. "Elena." Adrian's voice rumbled, low and uncertain. She turned, her breath catching. He stood there, tie loosened, hair mussed, shadows under his eyes. For once, he looked less like the untouchable CEO and more like the man she used to know. "You shouldn't be out here," he said, stepping closer. "It's freezing." "I can handle it," she whispered, her voice sharp, though her heart pounded. He stopped just inches away, his presence overwhelming. "You've changed," her throat tightened. "You forced me to." Silence stretched, heavy and dangerous. His hand lifted slightly, as if he wanted to touch her, to trace her cheek like he once had, but he stopped himself, his jaw tightening, his hand falling back to his side. "You hate me," he said quietly. Her chest ached. "You gave me every reason to." He flinched, as if her words had struck him. Then he stepped back, retreating into the shadows. The war continued, but something else grew with it. Every clash, every argument, every glance was laced with tension they couldn't name. Fury and longing intertwined, pulling them closer even as they pushed each other away. At night, Elena lay awake, furious with herself for still feeling anything at all. He had released her. He had broken her. She should hate him, should despise him, and yet, when she closed her eyes, she still remembered the way he once held her, the way his voice softened when he said her name. She buried her face in her pillow, whispering into the darkness, "Don't let me fall again." But some shadows refused to be banished, and Adrian Blackwell was the darkest of them all. The gala was glittering, decadent, the kind of event Elena once would have attended on Adrian's arm. Now she was there on business, representing her firm. The chandeliers glowed above, crystal glasses clinked, and laughter swirled around her. She kept her smile steady, but her eyes betrayed her. Always scanning, always aware of him, Adrian stood across the room, magnetic as ever in his black tuxedo, his presence commanding. People gravitated toward him, executives, politicians, socialites. And then, inevitably, Vanessa Hart appeared at his side. Elena's breath hitched. Vanessa was radiant in a scarlet gown, her hand brushing Adrian's arm as if she belonged there. Her lips curved in that poisonous smile Elena remembered too well. It was as though the years had melted away, dragging Elena back to the night it all fell apart. She turned to leave, but fate intervened. Vanessa's laugh rang out, sharp and mocking. "It's almost too easy, isn't it? Plan a whisper here, a photo there, and even Adrian Blackwell believed me." Elena froze. Her blood ran cold, her body rigid as the words sank in. Slowly she turned back. Vanessa was leaning against the bar, a glass of champagne in hand, speaking to another guest who looked horrified. Vanessa smirked, unbothered. "Men are predictable. Adrian thought she betrayed him, and I let him believe it. It cleared my path, didn't it?" Elena's vision blurred with shock. Her hands trembled, fury and pain colliding in her chest. It had been Vanessa all along. The photos, the whispers, the poison. Before she could move, a shadow fell across Vanessa. Adrian. His face was pale, his gray eyes darker than storm clouds. "He had heard. What did you just say?" His voice was low, lethal, every word sharp as a blade. Vanessa's smugness faltered. "Adrian, darling, you misunderstood. Say it again." His tone cracked through the room like thunder. The crowd fell silent, all eyes turning toward them. Vanessa faltered, her smile wavering. It was just talk." Adrian's jaw tightened. "You lied. You poisoned my marriage. You made me believe she—" His voice broke, his gaze flicking toward Elena, who stood frozen across the room. Their eyes met. And in that moment, the truth shattered everything. "Elena," Adrian whispered, his voice raw, desperate, cutting through the silence. Tears burned her eyes. She shook her head, her chest aching with too many emotions to name: relief, fury, heartbreak. How many years had she suffered for a lie? How many nights had she cried herself to sleep while he believed she had betrayed him? Her voice cracked as she finally spoke. "You let her destroy us. You let her lies matter more than my truth." Adrian's face twisted, pain flashing in his eyes. He took a step toward her, but she recoiled. "Don't," she whispered, her hands trembling. "Don't you dare come closer," the crowd murmured, the scandal spreading like fire. Vanessa's mask crumbled, her smile gone, her eyes wide with fear. But Elena barely saw her. Her gaze was locked on Adrian, on the man who had once held her heart, who had once sworn she was his. The weight of it crushed him. Adrian turned back to Vanessa, fury blazing. "You will never set foot near me again. You've taken enough." His voice was cold, final, the sound of doors slamming shut. Vanessa paled, retreating into the shadows, her empire of lies collapsing around her. But Adrian didn't stay to watch. His eyes sought Elena's, pleading, desperate. "Elena, please. I didn't know. I was a fool. I believed her when I should have believed you." Her chest constricted. "You broke me, Adrian. You released me when I needed you to fight for me." He stepped closer, anguish etched into every line of his face. "Give me a chance to make it right." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered, "You can't erase what you did." And before he could answer, she turned and walked away, her gown sweeping behind her, her heart heavy with the truth that had come too late. That night, alone in her apartment, Elena collapsed onto her bed. Her body shaking, the truth was out. The lies had finally surfaced. But the scars of betrayal remained, and no apology could undo years of pain. Yet in her chest, buried deep, her heart whispered the truth she refused to admit, that she still loved him. Adrian Blackwell was a man who had built empires, crushed rivals, and commanded respect wherever he went. But for the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Because none of his wealth, none of his power, none of his influence could undo the damage he had caused to the one woman who mattered, Elena. The morning after the gala, his penthouse felt emptier than ever. The city stretched endlessly below, the skyline glowing with the success he had once believed was everything. But none of it mattered. He saw only her face, eyes brimming with tears, voice breaking as she whispered, "You released me when I needed you to fight for me." The words gutted him. He had believed himself a man of control. But the truth was cruel. He had been controlled by his own doubts, his own pride, his refusal to trust the one person who deserved it most. And now, he was left with nothing but regret, for days. He tried to reach her, phone calls unanswered, flowers returned, letters unopened. He stood outside her office once, watching through the glass as she worked late, her auburn hair falling in loose waves around her face. She didn't notice him, or perhaps she pretended not to. When she finally did glance up, their eyes met through the glass. His heart ached at the coldness in her gaze. She turned away without a word. Still, he refused to give up. Weeks later, fate offered him another chance. It was raining heavily, the city drowning in gray, when Adrian's car passed a familiar figure stranded on the roadside, Elena. Her car hood was open, steam rising. She stood in the downpour, clutching her coat tighter, her hair plastered to her face. Before his driver could stop, Adrian was already out of the car, an umbrella snapping open above them. "Elena," he said, breathless. Her head jerked up, eyes wide. Of course, she muttered bitterly. You again, he ignored the sting. Get in the car. You'll catch cold. I can handle it, she snapped, turning back to the engine. He placed the umbrella above her anyway, rain soaking his suit. You shouldn't have to. She froze, the quiet sincerity in his voice breaking through her anger. For a moment, their eyes met, water dripping from their lashes, silence pressing heavy. But then she shook her head, pulling away. Don't do this, Adrian. Don't show up like a savior when you were the one who destroyed me. His chest tightened. I know, he admitted, his voice rough. I failed you. I failed us, but I can't stop wanting to make it right. Her lips trembled, but she turned away, stepping back into the rain. And though she walked, he followed, no longer the untouchable CEO, but a man stripped bare by regret. From that day on, Adrian's pursuit became relentless, but different from before. Not with power, not with possession, with humility. He attended her presentations, sitting quietly at the back, never demanding her attention but always present. He supported her projects anonymously, funneling funds through charities she worked with, ensuring her vision thrived. He sent her handwritten notes, not of apologies alone, but of memories, reminders of who they once were. Do you remember the balcony in Florence? You said the city lights looked like stars. I've never forgotten the way you smiled that night. Do you remember the community center you dreamed of? I see it standing now because of you. I'm proud of you, Elena, she didn't respond. But she didn't tear them up either. One evening, weeks later, she opened her door to find him standing there, drenched from the rain again. No umbrella this time. Her heart clenched. Adrian, I won't leave until you hear me out, he said, his voice raw, his eyes burning with desperation. She crossed her arms, fighting the ache in her chest. Why now? After all this time, why fight for me now? His voice broke. Because I finally see the truth. I let lies destroy us. I let pride blind me. And it cost me everything. It cost me you, tears stung her eyes. She wanted to slam the door, to protect herself. But his voice, trembling with something she had never heard from him before, vulnerability, held her still. I don't deserve forgiveness, he whispered. But I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn it if you let me. Her heart twisted painfully. She wanted to hate him. She wanted to walk away. But deep inside, beneath the scars, love still pulsed, fragile, stubborn, alive. She closed her eyes, her whisper barely audible. Don't break me again, Adrian, his breath shuddered out. Never, not again. And for the first time in years, hope flickered between them. Weeks passed, and though Elena tried to hold onto her walls, Adrian's persistence chipped away at them. Not through grand gestures or overwhelming dominance, but through quiet consistency. For the first time since she had known him, Adrian Blackwell wasn't trying to control her. He wasn't storming into her world demanding possession. He was simply there, waiting, listening, proving through action rather than words that he had changed. It unnerved her. It moved her. It scared her. One evening, she invited him inside. It wasn't planned. Rain streaked her apartment windows, and when she saw him standing outside, soaked to the bone, holding nothing but a folder of project notes, something inside her softened. Come in, she said quietly. Stepping aside, he hesitated, then entered. The warmth of her small apartment enveloped them both, and for a moment, silence stretched between them. This is nice, he said finally, glancing around at the shelves of books, the scattered sketches, the little plants by the window. It's mine, she replied softly, almost defiantly. I built this without you. His gaze lingered on her, something like pride flickering in his eyes. I know, and it's beautiful. Just like everything you create. Her chest tightened. They sat across from each other at her small kitchen table, steam rising from the mugs of tea she had set before them. I don't know what you expect, Elena said finally, her fingers curling around the ceramic. An apology can't erase years of pain, Adrian's voice was steady but quiet. I don't expect it to. I don't expect you to forget. I only ask for the chance to show you that I am not the man I was when I let you go. Her throat constricted. You didn't just let me go, Adrian. You destroyed me. His jaw clenched, regret shadowing his face. I know, and it haunts me every day. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with all the unsaid words between them. The turning point came weeks later, at the unveiling of the new Blackwell headquarters. Elena's design had come to life. Soaring glass walls, open courtyards filled with light and green, a building that breathed possibility. As she stood at the podium, her voice steady, the audience erupted in applause. She caught sight of Adrian in the crowd. He wasn't looking at the building. He wasn't listening to the speeches. His gaze was fixed only on her, pride and love shining through every line of his face. For the first time in years, she didn't look away. That night, he appeared at her door again. I don't deserve you, he whispered, his voice raw. But I can't stop loving you. I never stopped. Tears burned her eyes. Loving me didn't stop you from believing the worst. His face twisted with anguish. And I will regret it until my last breath. But please, Elena, don't let that be the end of us. Don't let lies win when the truth is standing right here between us. Her hands trembled. Her heart ached. And then, with a breath that felt like surrender, she whispered, Don't break me again. I won't, he vowed, his gray eyes burning with sincerity. Not ever again. And for the first time in so long, she let him hold her. Their kiss was not the firestorm of their youth. It was gentler, rawer, born of pain and forgiveness, of scars and healing. It was two broken souls finding each other again after years of darkness. In his arms, she felt the truth she had tried to deny. Love had survived, not untouched. Not unscarred, but stronger. Months later, as they stood on the balcony of her apartment, their apartment now, the city stretched beneath them, lights glittering like stars. Elena leaned against him, his arm wrapped securely around her. We almost lost everything, she whispered. We did lose everything, Adrian replied softly. Then he kissed her temple. But we found it again. She closed her eyes, the ache in her chest finally easing. Because despite the lies, despite the betrayal, despite the years apart, their love had survived the hurt. And this time, nothing would break them again. If you like the story, hit like, share, and subscribe button.